PCT application should only be used for invention type of patent applications. As of March 2007, the PCT had 137 contracting states. So that's 137 countries that participate in the PCT process. So what that means is, if you really wanted to, if your invention impacts everybody all over the world and you have competitors everywhere all over the world, you could file 137 applications in the member countries from the PCT application. Very, very, very few people actually do that. Instead, people will typically file the PCT application and then file only where their competitors are located, so in the US or Germany or China or somewhere like that. And then they might also file in some countries where their product is being sold or they have a big market or something like that in order to protect their own patents. The PCT program is administered by the World Intellectual Property Organization, what we call WIPO. And so sometimes we will refer to the publication of a PCT application as the WIPO publication. So this is something that's administered by a worldwide organization, not any single specific patent office. So SIPO does not administer the PCT process. SIPO would be a searching agency for WIPO, but they are not the people that control the PCT process. This USPTO does not control it. The EPO does not control it. This is a worldwide organization. So here is a typical timeline for how a PCT works. This is a timeline that gives a lot of information. A lot of this information is optional, and we'll kind of work our way through this in order to describe the different pieces and what's going to happen, and also let you know what is optional and some idea about when you might want to use those options or when you might want to avoid those options. So the original application is typically filed at the 0-month mark. So when you file, for example, your Chinese application, that's when the clock starts to tick for when you must enter the international phase. So if you file a Chinese application, you have 12 months to file your PCT application. You can file it earlier. Some of our clients file the PCT application within a couple weeks of the Chinese domestic application. So you don't have to wait the entire 12 months. In addition, you do not have to file an original Chinese application. Some of our clients will actually file the PCT application directly with SIPO at the 0-month mark. So they kind of go directly to the international phase as opposed to starting with a domestic application. So once the PCT application is filed, within about 4 months, you're going to get what is called an ISR, or an International Search Report, as well as an initial written opinion that's provided by the International Searching Authority. So I mentioned just a few minutes ago about how SIPO is not the administrator of the PCT process. What SIPO would be is something called the International Search Authority. So there are several different international search authorities across the world, and you can select the international search authority you want, but most companies choose to use the international search authority that is closest to their own base of operations to avoid translation costs and to be able to kind of effectively minimize the cost of the PCT process. So in the International Search Report that you receive 4 months typically after you file the PCT application, you're going to get a list of references and how the International Search Authority examiner thinks these references apply to the claims and to which claims the examiner thinks that they apply. In addition, you'll get an initial written opinion. The written opinion provides just a little bit more information, basically describing the international search report in more of a narrative format. And that information can be helpful when you decide whether or not to enter into the United States or enter into any other local jurisdiction. After you receive the international search report, you have the option to file an Article 19 amendment. An Article 19 amendment is something that amends only the claims. So the claims are amended sometimes to maybe just make some clarity to the claims, make sure that the examiner is examining what we are intending to be examined. Also, if the prior art that is identified by the international search report is found to be very relevant, then perhaps the Article 19 amendment would be filed in order to try to overcome those references. Following the international search report, at about the 18-month mark or 6 months after the PCT application is filed, there is publication of the PCT application, so the original filing. In addition, the international search report is published. The written opinion is not published. That is something that's provided only to the applicant. But the international search report is published, and if there were any Article 19 amendments, then those amendments would be published as well. Because of the publication of the Article 19 amendments, most clients choose not to file Article 19 amendments. As we mentioned before, you don't get any type of protection through the PCT process. So there's no real strong reason to try to amend the claims to overcome the prior art identified in the international search report. If you file an Article 19 amendment in the United States or maybe some other jurisdictions, competitors or potential infringers would likely argue that you are admitting that the original claims in the PCT were not patentable. Now, whether they win that argument is a different question, but that will be an argument that they most likely will make. Following the publication of the PCT application, then you have the option to demand examination. So you have the option to demand examination. So we're going to go up to the top line and assume that examination is requested. When you request the examination, you have the option to amend the claims, the specification, or the drawings to put the case in a better condition for allowance if you think that's necessary. Again, this is not something that is required. You can request examination without amending the case, but you cannot amend the case further under Article 34 without requesting examination. So, if you do request examination, the examination process takes up to about 6 months. Typically, it's a little bit less, but 6 months is a safe estimate for how long the examination process takes. There is no opportunity to do kind of a back and forth multiple office action, multiple amendment situation for a PCT application. Instead, once you file the demand for examination and any Article 34 amendment, then the international examiner will examine the claims and the case as they are presented and issue what is called an International Preliminary Examination Report, or IPER. And the International Preliminary Examination Report is very similar to an office action. If there was no amendment to the claims, typically it's an expanded version of the written opinion that was provided with the ISR. If there was some type of amendment, typically the examiner will address the amendment and provide a little bit more detail about why the amendment either is considered to satisfy the requirements for patentability or why those amendments still fail to satisfy the requirements for patentability. And then after you receive that, you still have some time to decide whether or not you are going to file this application into the local jurisdictions, into the national